So this is the hypocrisy of MAGA. MAGA wants you to believe that 40 million people have come across the border in the last 4 years. And they also want you to believe that 40 million of those people, there is a high percentage of them that are terrorists, that are criminals, that are going to sexually assault and perform just various crimes across the country at all times. Yet at the same time, there's no numbers to prove any of that. So if there's 40 million of these people, and they've all come into our country, and they're all committing crimes widespread across the country, then why is there no evidence? You're telling me that 40 million people can come into our country and commit crimes, and there's not going to be any evidence? None? Anyways, this is David Pakman talking a little bit about the interview. I wanted to be able to talk a little bit about the interview, but I didn't want to watch the interview because, to tell you the truth, it's fucking boring. Lex Fridman asks questions, and Donald Trump doesn't answer them. Like, that's the entire interview from beginning to end, is Lex Fridman asking questions like, what would you do about Ukraine? And Donald Trump going, it never would have happened. Ukraine never would. He's like, okay, well, but it did, so what would you do? Never would have happened. Never would have happened. He just doesn't answer anything. And it's actually, I like watching Trump interviews with people where it's like mildly combative, or like even the Logan Paul shit. You guys sat here with me and watched the Logan Paul one with me. I thought that was entertaining. I think he's an idiot. I think Logan Paul's not the smartest motherfucker either. But Trump's a moron. I'll laugh at his ass. 100%, I think that Lex Fridman, Donald Trump interview, it was boring as fuck, man.
Ever seen was published yesterday. It was Lex Fridman interviewing the failed former president Donald Trump. Now, some of you may recall, I was on Lex's show some time ago.
Don,
and
you saw
Lex
something about
Fridman's
Ivanka?
approach
Yeah, I don't
to
know anything.
interviewing
I think that's an old interview.
Is sort of laid back, not particularly.
He talked to Ivanka, I think, and Jared Kushner, back in July or something like that. And to tell you the truth, that would probably be a pretty interesting interview. Like, one of the things about Lex, and I like Lex, but Lex talks really slow. And so if you don't have somebody on the other side that's like really like interesting, Lex is like really intelligent, but he's intelligent in that way of like, he's very like methodical in the way he speaks. You know who else does that? Drives me nuts is Sam Harris. Fucking love Sam Harris. I think Sam Harris is incredibly intelligent. I don't agree with all his takes. I know you guys are about to shit on me for liking Sam Harris, but I like Sam Harris. I don't agree with all his politics and stuff like that. But incredibly intelligent guy, but he talks so slow that it's hard to listen to it. And so does Lex Fridman.
Argumentative. Let the guest explain how they came to their views without any real probing or certainly no contradictions with facts. And that was Lex's approach in this interview. There are people defending him saying, listen, this is the way he's done his 441 episodes before this one, so why would we expect anything different? And there are those who are angry saying, well, listen, when you interview a former president who is the Republican candidate, you can't just let them lie uncontrollably and either refuse or be ill-equipped to contradict what they say. Let's watch some of the clips and then make that determination. One of the things you will notice is that Trump is slurring and seems sedated, and his right eye is almost completely swollen shut. It's almost closed. It's like he's been in a boxing ring. It's bizarre. One of the funny things is that Lex has a kind of low-key affect himself. And I'm not suggesting that Trump is trying to match Lex's affect, but Lex is so low-key. Trump sounds sedated. His eye is almost completely swollen shut.
Yeah, this is what I was saying.
It's wild. We pick up the interview when Lex Fridman asks Trump about his claims regarding the 2020 election. Trump tells 13 lies in 2.5 minutes. 13 lies in 2.5.
Come on, those are rookie numbers for Donald Trump, David. I don't know why David's so impressed by that. Donald Trump's like, 13? That was it? I could have done 16 easily. Next time, I'll try harder. 13, those are rookie numbers.
Minutes. Let's see if you can count them all. We'll watch, and then we will discuss.
Tough topic, but important. You said lost by a whisker. I'm an independent. I have a lot of friends who are independent, many of whom like your policies, like the fact that you're a deal maker, like the fact that you can end wars, but they are troubled by what happened in the 2020 election and statements about widespread fraud and this kind of stuff, fake electoral scheme. What can you say to those independent voters to help them decide who to vote for?
I think
Before he answers this is what I'm saying. Do you see how centrist he dropped that? He dropped that with, I'm an independent, I know other independents. And then instead of saying, like, I feel like maybe some of the things you said were very controversial, I feel as though, like, possibly, you know, you might have committed treason. Instead, he goes, I have friends that think that you may have, and it causes them concern. And it's like, I understand being a centrist. Like, you know, you've seen me and Reverend talk about, like, objectivism and stuff. And I really do believe in attempting to look at any situation with as little bias as possible. You're always going to have some bias. But attempting to approach your bias and give people a chance, give them good faith, give them grace to attempt to make their point. And to the point that some of you guys get annoyed with me, right? So I get that. Who is it? Andrew, what's his name, comes in and calls me a goddamn fucking centrist. And he's kind of right. You know, sometimes I play a little too close to the middle of the field. Sometimes I want to wait for more information and kind of like get a better idea of what's going on before I like to jump full board into it and go angry ginger on some shit. But this is annoying. That like position that Lex Fridman just took was absolutely annoying. And that's why I couldn't deal with it. I was watching it just like cringing the whole goddamn time.
Independent voters to help them decide who to vote for.
I think the fraud was on the other side. I think the election was a fraud. And many people...
And I'm going to play the 13 lies. That's the first. I'm going to play the 13 lies back to back. But I'm just acknowledging Trump sounds absolutely... He sounds like he's on sedatives. I mean, it's bizarre.
Felt it was that. And they wanted answers. And when you can't challenge an election, you have to be able to challenge it. Otherwise... it's going to get worse, not better.
Yeah, and nobody disagrees with it. This is why I think that people that debate with Trump are so bad faith. People that debate for Trump are so bad faith because I will say things along the lines of Donald Trump had every right to look into the election. He had every right to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I have zero problem with that. I have zero problem with investigating fraud. The absolute bullshit, bad faith stance that Trump and his supporters continue to take is that regardless of how much he has gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, that they still believe that there was fraud and that it was stolen. That's why they are bad faith. Because regardless whether or not he paid people to look into it, whether Republicans... If you listen to that Raffensperger phone call, Raffensperger isn't, like, conflictual. He's not confrontational. He's, like, literally trying to suck up to Trump in the way of being like, sir, listen, I tried to do you solid. I tried. I really did. It just isn't there. Like, if you're at least being good faith enough to say... Raffensperger and Kemp aren't exactly going to try to get a Democrat elected. Like, if they had the chance to help Donald Trump out, they definitely would have. Like, if you can't be good faith enough to admit that, then there is no debating with you. You're in a fucking cult.
And there are lots of ways to solve this problem. Go to paper ballots and do it the easy way. I mean, the paper ballots, and you have voter ID and you have same-day voting. And you have proof of citizenship, which is very important because we have people voting that are not citizens. They just came in and they're loading up the payrolls. They're loading up everything. They're putting students in schools. They don't speak a word of English. And they're taking the seats of people that are citizens of our country.
Yeah, these are all the lies he's saying back to back. Like I said, there's so many things that we can talk about with like our immigration system and stuff like that that do need to be fixed. Even things to do with like voter ID law and stuff like that that I do agree with. But when you exaggerate things and say things like immigrants are coming across the border and they're putting them on the voter polls, Ken Block, who Donald Trump paid to find these things, didn't find these things. He had every reason to engender himself into Donald Trump's trust circle. So many people so far have been willing to go far outside of the norms to make themselves available to Trump so that way Trump will take care of them. Ken Block could have done that. He didn't do it. Because the dude actually had some integrity.
So, look, we have the worst border in the history of the world. We have coming into our country right now millions and millions.
Like that. We have the worst border in the history of the world. Like, if you have half a fucking brain cell left in your head, you understand how exaggerated that statement is. You mean, like, over in the war-torn Congo where there's people, like, fucking literally, like, women being assaulted every single day? Like, yeah, that... Their borders are better than ours? Dude, it's exaggeration, and it's the least helpful thing to having a real conversation about the border. Like, fentanyl coming across the border, bad thing. We should be talking about that. We want to have that conversation. I want to see that fixed. But you don't fix that by making these absurd statements, because that makes the conversation highly polarized. It makes the conversation a zero-sum game. Either we do these things that I want done, or else the world is falling apart. I was saying this to Redonk the other night. He sent me a really cool video, and I'll share it in Discord. It's a good video. It's a guy who talks a lot about, like, potential things happening in society that are leading to some of the crazy stuff that we're seeing, and it's very centrist. It's a very centrist video, but I liked it because it's cerebral. But I was saying this. This is what I hate about doomerism. That dude's not a doomer because he wants to talk about things that could potentially go bad in society. He's not a doomer because he wants to talk philosophically about what happened 250 years ago, 500 years ago, the different, like, things that happen generation to generation that seem to always be happening. There's nothing wrong with that. Doomers, the problem with doomers is the border. It isn't just a problem, it's the biggest problem. The people coming across the border, they're not just bad people, they're the worst people. COVID wasn't handled good at all. The vaccines are killing people. Joe Biden, he's part of the biggest crime family. Joe Biden, worst president ever. That's the problem with doomerism. It's not just saying, like, here's these things that we have that are issues, and I think that these people behind it are, like, big money people. That's more like just your regular everyday conspiracy theorizer, and I can have conversations with even those people and say, yeah, I agree with some of that stuff. Big Pharma being involved in some of this shit is not good. Dark money being involved in politics, not good. Corporations owning shit like oligarchs, not good. We can have those conversations. My problem is with doomers, because every single thing they see means it's either the end of the world or it's the worst possible scenario. And you can't talk to people that sit around and think all day long that, like, everything is the worst and we're all gonna die. And you just, what are we gonna do? We can't do anything about it because the only thing we can do about it is put Donald Trump in charge. That's insane. Later, Tired. Appreciate you, Tired. Love you, Tired.
To people at levels that nobody's ever seen. I don't believe any country's ever seen it. And
yeah,
they
it's
would
all
use
Chicken
sticks
Little
and
bullshit,
stones
man.
not to make it happen, not to let it happen. We don't do anything. And we have a person who was the border czar, who now said she wasn't really the border czar, but she was. She was the border czar, but she was in.
Like, even that, all you have to say is that Kamala Harris was given the job to go to these other countries, these Central American countries, to attempt to address the root cause of immigration. The idea that things like climate change are causing people to leave their country, the idea that civil unrest is causing people to leave these countries, those are all true things. There are caravans of people that make their way through Mexico, Central America, to our border, and unfortunately, because they're unable to handle it, a lot of those people get let loose into the country without enough supervision to satisfy my point of view. I disagree with it. But the idea of sending Kamala Harris to these Central American countries was to help those countries solidify their civil systems, solidify our trade agreements with them to help them. So that way we address the root cause of why those people are leaving those countries. So once again, you could have a conversation about whether or not she did good or not about that. Because from what I saw, the statistics I've seen shows a reduction of over 50% from those countries coming to America, which means that most likely she did. But we could have a conversation about it if you want to talk about that. But if all you're going to do is say borders are, borders are, borders are, borders are, borders are, then no, I can't have a conversation with you because you're full of shit and you don't know anything you're talking about.
In charge of the border. And we have her, and she's saying,
yeah, exactly.
Very strongly.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
yeah.
I did such a good job. She was horrible, horrible. The harm she's done. But we have people coming in from other countries all over the world, not just South America, and they're coming in from prisons and jails. They're coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums.
Okay.
And he's
That's
just been repeating
just
the same
under
line
2.5
for so
minutes.
long.
And Trump told 13 lies. 13 lies. Trump says Democrats committed voter fraud in 2020. There's no evidence.
Proven true. Untrue.
Trump
yeah.
says many people felt there was Democratic voter fraud. Well, facts and feelings are two different things. Trump says you can't challenge an election. That's wrong. Trump tried, and he did everything that you can.
Yeah, I've even said this over and over and over again. He actually made me feel better about our election system because out of any president up to this point that I know of, at least, he went through the electoral process with a fine-tooth comb. And when we talk about, like, Ken Block got up there and he said, hey, look, there were people that it said on the voter rolls that they were born in 1900. But that's not due to fraud. And this is Donald Trump's guy. This is Donald Trump's guy. He said it wasn't due to voter fraud. It was due to a glitch in the system that when a birth date is either incorrectly input or the birth date is not put in by the person. And anybody that's ever had to, like, do data entry off of somebody handwriting, like if you had to ever, like, enter somebody's email into a system, you know how hard sometimes it is to read people's handwriting. People's handwriting is shit. So you can imagine when it comes down to these systems where people are inputting this data into systems that on occasion birth dates are incorrect. Birth dates are not entered, and they default because the system's set up to defaulting to the year 1900. That's why he said it would be really crazy to have 1,100 people that all were from 1900 that voted. And when you actually go through the process of looking into who these people are and then figuring out who they actually are and what their actual birth dates are, you find that they're still alive, they voted appropriately, and that the problem isn't with the person voting and they're dead. The problem is with the system that we have, and we should correct that. He called it, what did he say? He called it crap data. He said, for lack of a better term, it's crap data. And we should fix that. But we can't talk about fixing it because people are like, no, it's not actually that. They're using dead people to vote, bro.
It's just there was no merit to the challenge. Trump says paper ballots would solve this. It wouldn't. I mean, voter fraud of the kind Trump claims is so rare. Paper ballots would just bring this massive logistical issue for handling and storing them. If there's a natural disaster, they can get lost. It's really a solution in search of a problem. Trump says voter ID would solve it. Remember that it is not really a problem. And we know that voter ID laws disproportionately impact certain groups of voters, low-income people, elderly.
Yeah, the one in Arizona currently that the courts just overturned, but just so you guys know, it doesn't affect this election. It disproportionately affects people like Native Americans. I just got my birth certificate because I didn't have my I thought I had my copy of my birth certificate, but I didn't. So I needed my birth certificate. So I just went through the process of getting my birth certificate. It's not an easy process. And it shouldn't be. Legitimately so. It shouldn't be an easy process. Like getting a hold of a person's birth certificate shouldn't be just like logging on online, paying $10 and getting it sent to your house. It wasn't an easy process, and it took about 4.5 months for me to get it. Total. Like 4.5 months. I could have probably expedited it by paying more money, but once again, these are people that don't have these means. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't have to present this idea. I'm saying there's a different solution. The solution isn't because you're a conservative and you know that low-income people disproportionately vote for Democrats, that you should make it harder for them to vote. If you are 100% in agreement that you believe your ideas are the right ideas for America because most Americans agree with you, then you should also be 100% for making sure that every single American has the ability to vote. So instead of saying something like, well, a bunch of Native Americans don't get the chance to vote, like we haven't fucked them enough already, but let's say you don't think they should be able to vote because they don't have birth certificates, so they can't get passports or they can't get ID, whatever it is, you don't want them to be able to vote, then you should be putting in legislation. You should put in money from the government to support programs to help them get those birth certificates so that way they can vote appropriately. But we know the reason they don't want them to vote is because they vote disproportionately for Democrats. And this is where the fucking problem is.
Folks, students, everybody who is eligible to vote, to be clear, and there's no evidence that voter ID
still doesn't add
prevents voter fraud.
Enough
There's
to
also
affect
no
the
evidence
outcome
that
in the
voter
first
fraud
place.
is happening. Trump says same-day voting would solve it.
No, I need a physical
doesn't
copy.
Exist.
Woke Mike.
Of course,
Some
requiring
things you
all
can't
votes
have
to be
unless you have
cast
a
on the
physical
same
copy.
day just increases the likelihood that lines are really long, that polling places are crowded, that there are technical issues, and that can deter people from voting. It would cause a problem. Trump says proof of citizenship would solve it. Reality is that current voter registration process already includes citizen verification through either the U.S. Census or state-specific requirements of different kinds. And these vague proof of citizenship requirements would be redundant, and they would be unlikely to catch fraud because the fraud isn't actually happening. Trump says non-citizens who just came to the United States are voting. There's no evidence of that. Trump says immigrants who speak no English are taking the seats of people from our country. I don't even know what that means. Trump says that we have the worst border in history. That's certainly not true, as we've seen significant declines in border crossings under the Biden administration. He says Kamala Harris was the border czar. She was not. He says that people are coming into the country from prisons and jails. There's no evidence of that. And finally, Trump says people are coming into the country illegally from mental institutions and insane asylums. And there is also no evidence of that.
And once again, so if that was true, so this is the hypocrisy of MAGA. MAGA wants you to believe that 40 million people have come across the border in the last 4 years. And they also want you to believe that 40 million of those people, there is a high percentage of them that are terrorists, that are criminals, that are going to sexually assault and perform just various crimes across the country at all times. Yet at the same time, there's no numbers to prove any of that. So if there's 40 million of these people, and they've all come into our country, and they're all committing crimes widespread across the country, then why is there no evidence? You're telling me that 40 million people can come into our country and commit crimes, and there's not going to be any evidence? None? Except for like your twice a week, hey, we caught an immigrant that committed a crime. The New York Post posting that some dude broke into a store and then assaulted a police officer. Like, I can post every single day for the rest of my life crimes committed by people in America that are American, that are citizens, that are abhorrent. I could do it like all day long, every day for the rest of my life. And you're telling me that MAGA and Fox News, that has every reason to be broadcasting these crimes across the board, and they do when they find them every once in a while, wouldn't do the same? Please. If that shit was going on, Fox News would be nothing but a 24/7 channel of immigrant crimes just being just like, it would just be on loop. But no, what do they find? Once, like every 2 weeks, they find an immigrant that committed a crime. They're full of shit.
In 2.5 minutes. When Lex Fridman tells Trump claims of widespread fraud are bothering some people,
exactly,
here's how Trump reacts.
It just don't add up.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the claim of widespread fraud is the thing that bothers people.
Dude, Lex Fridman, my guy. You're friends with Elon Musk. Jesus Christ. I like Lex, but like this is the kind of shit that concerns me. Lex Fridman is friends with Elon Musk, the biggest of tech. He knows Eric and Brett Weinstein. They are friends with Peter Thiel, the biggest of tech. I don't know if these guys are intentionally being dishonest about their connections to these fucking billionaire oligarchs that are big tech, or if they genuinely don't know that they're being hypocrites. I can't tell.
Well, I don't focus on the past. I focus on the future.
Yes,
when
exactly,
Trump is
Cajun.
told
all day,
this
every
nonsense
day, many
is
different
really
people are
bothering
crimes,
a lot of people,
not
you may be
specific
turning
to
off
one
voters.
type of person.
Trump says, "I'm not focused on the past.
I'm from the
focused
ghetto.
on the future."
No, but white
Yet,
people where I was from
yet,
commit crimes all day
at
long.
every rally,
I was one of them.
for nearly 4 years, Trump rehashes these same debunked claims about the 2020 election. Trump then addresses the issue of religion and heaven. It's really weird. Trump's delivery is bizarre. Something is very wrong.
Oh, no.
Before these animals
Look at
were
these cute
adopted,
animals. Aw, this is a palate cleanser
before they
right now.
became a best
Aw.
friend.
Okay, we got to get out before the sad part happens.
One of the tragic
Sarah McLachlan was just about to start seeing Arms of an Angel. I swear to God.
things about life is that it ends. How often do you think about your death? Are you afraid of it?
I have a friend who's very, very successful, and he's in his 80s, mid-80s, and he asked me that exact same question. I turned it around. I said, well, what about you? He said, I think about it every minute of every day. And then a week later, he called me to tell me something.
That's not
And he
good.
starts off the conversation by going, tick, tock, tick, tock.
Yeah.
This is nutty stuff from Trump.
That is so weird.
This is a dark person, in a sense, but it is what it is. I mean, if you're religious, you have, I think, a better feeling toward it. You're supposed to go to heaven, ideally not hell, but you're supposed to go to heaven. if
Ideally
you're
not
good.
hell.
I think our country's missing a lot of religion. I think it really was a much better place with religion. It was almost a guide, to a certain extent. It was a guide.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East right now, people are like murdering each other like ad nauseum. This man's talking about immigrants coming into our country and committing crimes like at an untold rate. Meanwhile, you're going to defend, and look, I don't have any problem with people that are religious as long as they are Christ-like followers, as long as they are Quran-like, whatever it is, whatever your religion is, whoever the good person in your religion is, as long as you are following the rules like thou shalt not murder each other, thou shalt not steal each other's shit, thou shalt not be an asshole, thou shalt not be a dick. Like, I support you for that. But it is undeniable that in the Middle East right now, there are motherfuckers killing each other over a hill. Because it has a mosque, and they'd rather it had a temple because they needed to have a temple so that way they can burn a red cow for the apocalypse to come. I don't know that the world is a better place when we're all fighting over a fucking hill so that way we can bring upon us the end of times. There are literally 2 places in Syria where the Muslim religion believes that Christians will show up with the Antichrist who will claim that he is Jesus, and they will fight a battle, and they are constantly trying to make that happen. I don't know that makes the world a better place. I think that just throwing it out there might be a worse place if you're constantly trying to bring about the end of times. That's just how I feel about it. You guys can argue with me on that. Come at me, bro.
You want to be good to people. Without religion, there are no guardrails.
Of course, the claim that without religion there are no guardrails has been so widely discussed for so long.
Yeah, Bucky, we watched that video last Monday.
A subject
we watched
for
that
us
video
today.
Monday.
But the funniest part of all of this is that as Lex nods along, we all know Trump's not even religious. This is a character he's developed to enter politics in the Republican Party. Trump hasn't been to church for 3 years. I mean, the last time he went that we were able to find was 2021. It's all a farce.
Yeah, and it's just to be seen. And I don't have it down here with me, but recently I've been reading that Joe Moore book, Broken Badges and White Robes. It's the book about, and something I got wrong. I said he was an FBI agent. He was not an FBI agent. He was just a civilian that became a civilian informant and entered into the Ku Klux Klan. But for a person myself who grew up around skinheads and Peckerwoods, Featherwoods, Supreme White Power, Nazi lowriders, all those, really racist people, I don't have a lot of understanding of the history of the Ku Klux Klan and stuff. So this book has been really eye-opening when it's talking about things like Rosewood. And one of the things I guess I didn't 100% understand about the Ku Klux Klan is the religiosity of the Klan. And at the part where he's infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan and he's being naturalized. He's being naturalized as a card-carrying Ku Klux Klan member. He gets taken into this house with a sack over his head, roughed up a little bit, and they shove him into this room, and the room's completely dark except for Charles Denton, who is I believe he's the Grand Wizard of the White Knights, the Northern and Southern, I think, because I think there's 5 Grand Wizards. And he's there in these purple robes, and then you have another dude in green robes, another dude in black robes, and behind them is this cross that has 14 candles, and then on the table in front of them is an open Bible with a sword, and they knight him as a knight of the Ku Klux Klan. And I didn't really recognize, because I guess it doesn't always make sense to me, the two sides of faith, the two sides of religion. And that is the absolute zealotry of people like the Ku Klux Klan or the people in the Middle East that are murdering each other over a hill. And then the Christ-like followers, the people that believe in being a good person, taking care of the homeless, feeding veterans, stuff like that. It's hard for me sometimes to remember that both of those things exist even though they conflict. And Donald Trump reminds me of the type of person that's in this book that shows up to these KKK things to be I'm part of the church. I'm always here with you guys. I love your children, you love me. We all go to church together. But the only reason he's there, and not that Donald Trump even goes to church, but the reason he claims that he's religious is just to get that clout, just to get you to be loyal to him, just so you feel him.
And that really would be the question I would like to see.
Probably
asked.
Dark Cash.
Lex Fridman asking Trump, when you are composing one of your posts to Truth Social,
Bob,
what are
you are praying right now,
Where
Bob.
are you?
What are you doing usually when you're composing a truth? Are you chilling?
Nah, we let him talk, Cajun. We like to let him talk. There is no better panacea. Is that how you say that word? No better antidote for MAGA than letting MAGA talk. You want people to see it. You want them to understand it. You want them to see what these people think. There is nothing that will make somebody quicker go, oh shit, I want nothing to do with that person, than someone coming in my chat.
Chilling back on a couch.
Couches, beds.
Okay.
a lot of different things. I mean,
Pangea,
And of
that's
course,
the
a
word.
lot of different things I can only
I'm
assume
talking about the antidote word.
includes the
Can't say
toilet,
it's too
as
big.
widely reported, Trump regularly having to flush 10 to 15 times. The topic of the Jeffrey Epstein
I love when he talks
passenger
about the
lists
toilets.
and other documents came up. And as is typically the case, Trump does appear uncomfortable with the topic.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I mean, I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Oh, me and David have the same reaction. He's like, yeah, did I fly on his plane a lot? Yep. Did I go to a lot of parties with him? Yep. Did I know his girlfriend, wife, whatever, co-conspirator really fucking well? Yep. Did I ever go to his island? Nah, I didn't go to his island.
Oh my goodness. Why is he talking like that? Why is his eye almost completely swollen shut? And why does he always get uncomfortable when the topic of the guy he's in numerous videos hanging out with, Jeffrey Epstein, is brought up? Maybe we will never know, but I hope someday we will. Trump not exactly playing up his law and order credentials when he says Hillary Clinton is lucky that he didn't lock her up.
As the leader,
I wanted to say one more thing about the Epstein Island listing. I'm going to go on record right now. If Donald Trump were to follow through with any kind of records from Epstein coming out, they will be heavily redacted. And there's no such thing as a list, okay? I know that Trump supporters are they're very simple people. They're like, there's a list! It's not a list, you dipshits, okay? If anything comes out from Epstein, and I'm with you guys. I want to see the Epstein files too. I want to see them. I don't give a shit if there's Democrats on there. I don't care. Like, if my favorite football player is on there, I'm not going to say anything because last time I did this and I was like, fuck, that'd be fucked up if somebody took that out of context. If one of my favorite football players, a guy that's on my fantasy football team that's taking me to the motherland, happens to be on that list, fuck him, okay? Bill Clinton happens to be on that list, fuck him, okay? Donald Trump, I know, is on that list, so fuck him. All right? So I'm with you. I want to see him released too. But I will bet money today that if Donald Trump becomes president and releases those files, they'll be heavily redacted. I'd say about 200 times. Isn't that how many times his name appears in those flight logs? It will be 2 words. They will be the length of, let's say, Donald Trump, and they will be heavily redacted throughout the entire files. That's the only way you're going to see that. Kate Johnson, 13, 14 years old. Read the testimony from the Kate Johnson Florida case. It's open. I'll give you guys the link to it if you guys want to see the link to it. It's horrific. It's horrific. The things that she claims that Trump and Epstein did to her are horrific. It's not like you just read it and you're like, wow, that's fucked up. No, it's disgusting. It's gross. It's terrible. It's beyond belief. Donald Trump don't want to release those files.
leader of the United States, you were the most powerful man in the world.
Anybody on it?
As you mentioned, not only the most famous, but the most powerful. And if you become leader again, you will have unprecedented power. Just on your own personal psychology, what does that power do to you? Is there any threat of it corrupting how you see the world?
No, I don't think so. Look, I've been there for 4 years.
And you guys heard that, right? I mean, just his tongue engaged in a battle to the death against his tongue.
Just on your own personal psychology, what does that power do to you? Is there any threat of it corrupting how you see the world?
No, I don't think so. Look, I've been there for 4 years.
Yikes.
I could have done a big number on Hillary Clinton. I thought it looked terrible to take the president's wife and put her in prison. She's so lucky I didn't do anything.
And is he drunk? He does sound like he's drunk. He sounds like he's drunk. The reason that Hillary Clinton isn't in prison is because there was not enough evidence to try Hillary Clinton. James Comey, not exactly a Hillary Clinton fan, okay? James Comey did that investigation, ruined any chance for Hillary Clinton to win that election. Even my dumbass was spouting off at the mouth about his findings before I'd actually looked into his findings, before I read his actual findings, instead of just listening to what the dude wanted to say. Right now, the only person that should be saying anything about how they're lucky that they're not in prison is Donald Trump. Because September 16th, Juan Merchan is supposed to make his opinion known on whether or not he would like to push back the sentencing for Donald Trump. If that was me, if that was you, if that was anybody else, there wouldn't be any pushing back of sentencing. There wouldn't be any chance that you could ask for a stay of sentencing and hope that you didn't get put in prison or even given community service. But Donald Trump now has already done it once, and he's about to try it a second time. And then once Juan Merchan, which I believe this is what he'll do, once Juan Merchan says we're not going to push back sentencing any further, look, all I'm going to give you is fucking community service. Just take it. You're going to be on probation. Stop being a little bitch. Donald Trump's going to claim presidential immunity, which we all know in no way, shape, or form should be affecting this trial. But he's going to use it anyways because he knows that it's going to cause the cases to be stalled again. Donald Trump should never, ever in his life sit here and talk about how somebody should be locked up and they're so lucky. Donald Trump should be locked up. He's lucky.
She's so lucky.
That's absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying that he is saying essentially Hillary Clinton should be thanking me
up without evidence
that I didn't lock her up. By what means Trump would have done it, we still don't know. And then finally, Lex Fridman addressing the issue of supposed tension with podcaster Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah, this
Trump
should be good.
says
What up,
Rogan's
AJ?
kind of a liberal guy, and I don't know that I'm inclined to appear on his show.
Let me ask you about my good friend Joe Rogan. So you had a bit of tension with him. So when he said nice things about RFK Jr.,
I'm just going to say that this is weird. Can we agree that this is kind of weird? A bunch of grown-ass men, so my friend said something about his friend, and you got mad that he said he liked his friend more than he liked you, and then you got mad? Are you still mad? Come on, it's weird. It's fucking weird.
Jr., I think you've said some not so nice things about Joe, and I think that was a bit
What about
unfair.
him?
And as a fan of Joe, I would love to see you do his podcast because
Dude, Lex, good God, man. Lex. These people are stretching my ability to still enjoy them. Lex, is that really what you just came with? Was that what you just came with, Lex? Oh my God, man.
he is legit the greatest conversationalist in the world. So what's the story behind the tension?
I don't think there was any tension. And I've always liked him, but I don't know him. I mean, I only see him when I walk into the arena with Dana and I shake his hand. I see him there, and I think he's good at what he does, but I don't know about doing his podcast. I mean, I guess I'd do it, but I haven't been asked, and I'm not asking them, you know. I'm not asking anybody.
It sounds like a challenging negotiation situation.
No, it's not. It's not really a negotiation. And he's sort of a liberal guy, I guess, you know, from what I understand.
Yeah. So I don't know about Rogan and being liberal at this point, certainly. Here's my thought about the interview. Trump's performance, bizarre, slurring, eye swollen shut. So I don't know what's going on with his teeth or tongue. It just, none of it makes any sense. And Trump's demeanor, bizarre, lied through the entire thing. Lex Fridman's a good guy. He means well. I sat with him for hours on his show. We talked before. We talked after. This interview was not good in the sense of Trump just lied his whole way through it. Trump said endlessly, factually incorrect things, whether they were all lies or some were mistakes or ignorance. I don't know. You decide. Lex did not fact check. Now, it is true. You know, this is podcast episode, I think I said this is episode 442 for Lex Fridman. He did it the same way he did the other 441. So, in a sense, you know what you're getting into. And so I don't know if the criticisms of Lex's handling are super fair. And, you know, oh, but David, you must be friends with Lex. I haven't had any interaction with Lex that I can recall since I was on his show a year and a half or 2 years ago. I also know, you know, if imagine, I don't know if I was episode 350 or whatever. If he's done 349 episodes one way and I show up and he treats me completely differently, it would be a sort of strange thing. My preference would be that this just be a different sort of interview altogether. I prefer an interview, especially when you're doing something like a public service with a former president and presidential candidate. I want there to be fact checking, and I want there to be, wait a second, you just said 13 things in 2.5 minutes. None of them are true. Let's go through them one by one and discuss them. That's not the way Lex does his show. So my question to you is, what is a fair criticism of Lex's handling of this interview? And what the hell is going on with Donald Trump slurring? Let me know what you think. Please make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel at YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it just from the point of view of somebody just watching an interview, I don't think the interview is good. I like Lex Fridman. One of my favorite Lex Fridman ones was him doing the 1984 book review. I thought he did it in a very good way. He's a very intellectual person. I like Lex Fridman, but first, the interview was just not good. It was boring. It was slow. The two people, it was a lot like Elon talking to Donald Trump. It was hard to listen to. But other than that, I just don't think that's the proper place for Donald Trump to be giving an interview as running for the president of the United States. It's not there. This is what I would say. Interviews do need to be mildly combative when you are interviewing a presidential candidate. They do need pushback of some sort. Because if we're talking about somebody that's going to lead the United States of America, we need somebody that can take questions that may be mildly abrasive. They don't need to be over the top. But questions that can be mildly abrasive, that can put you on your heels, that can make you feel a little uncomfortable. Because I guarantee you Putin's not going to be tossing softballs out there. Kim Jong-un isn't. Xi Jinping isn't. Even our allies aren't going to be doing that. It just seemed really out of place.